shoes. Feeling so hard. Summer living spring. We're gonna thrive. Go, go, go. Oh, shout it out loud. Hear the summer sun. We're a summer loving crowd. Talking Brazil ball. We're breaking it down.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking Brazil Ball. Botafogo stand on top of the world, or at top of South America at least, as they become the first champions of the continent for the first ever time with a brilliant Copa Libertadores win, despite a moment of early madness from Gregor. Flamengo finally stick a spanner in the wheels of the Rolo Compressor as they finally beat Inter. And the relegation battle is reaching critical levels for Criciúma and Red Bull Bragantino. All of that and so much more to come in today's episode. And I'm here, as always, with my co-host, George. George, what a week of football. We enjoyed that Copa Libertadores final, didn't we? We both watched it on BBC. It was a mad one, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it was. Good evening, everybody. Good evening to you, James, and como vai as well, of course. But it was mad. It was a real treat, actually, wasn't it, for us over here to be able to see it, live as it was happening. Because obviously, it's not very accessible, is it, over in Europe here? In England, it's difficult to watch live games. So yeah, it was a real treat, James, on Saturday evening. Like I said, we both watched it. We were both, texting during the game and. Yeah, it was great. Other than the scoreline, from my point of view, it was great. Other than that, but Botafogo, they deserved it. I thought Galo didn't take advantage of that really early opportunity. It was a game of two halves in many ways, James. I felt, but Galo just didn't push home their advantage enough, and Botafogo in the end had enough quality to see it home.
Yep, so anybody who didn't watch or wasn't aware, so it was the Copa Libertadores final on Saturday, and it did go to the form book. I predicted that it might not, that Galo might be able to spring a surprise, and that looked like it might bear kind of fruit, really. 30 seconds into the game, Gregor, with one of the worst tackles you'll ever see, really, 30 seconds into what they were saying really was the biggest game in Botafogo history, and he just studs the player in the head, really, after 30 seconds, stooping for a low ball, and he just kind of studded him. Really, referee didn't have any other choice but to send him off. So it looked like Galo might have a way back in. But Botafogo soon asserted the quality. A goal from Luis Enrique was followed up by a penalty by Alex Telles. And Galo came back early in the second half with a goal from Vargas, but they couldn't get the second, could they? And Junior Santos buried them right before the end. So I'm sure we might get into a little more Libertadores chat, George, as the episode goes on. But I just want to welcome all the new listeners as well. We had a mega episode, didn't we, last week, George? So welcome to everybody listening for the first time, or if you're listening for the second time, then I hope you enjoyed last week's, and I hope you're going to enjoy this week's as well.
Yeah, it was a massive episode, historic episode for us here at Talking Brazil Ball, James. A lot of people watching on YouTube. We're out on Spotify as well, don't forget, but lots and lots of people. Record-breaking for us so far, the episode on Thursday, wasn't it? And we're back again on Monday. So, like this time of year, the Brazil Real gets vigorous with the fixture list, so we've got to try and keep up. So, yeah, welcome along to everybody who's new to listening, new to viewing. It's great to have you here. I think we acquired about another nine or so subscribers as well. So it's good that people are wanting to stick around. So please stick around and listen to us. Give us your views on the Brasileirão as we move into the climax of it and into next season as well. So yeah, great to have everybody here with us. Yeah,
it is indeed, and I think we'll have another episode. This is a mega week, actually, isn't it? Because I think we're going to have another episode possibly on Friday. We just need to work out. But there is, of course, as we race towards the finish, there's 2 game weeks within this week. So this one that we're looking at today is the round of fixtures of the game week 36. There were, of course, 8 fixtures with that Copa Libertadores final. There were no games for Botafogo, also Palmeiras. Didn't play, and Galo and Juventude didn't play as well, did they, George? So I don't know what you want to do first. Do you want to do a quick quiz, or do you want to take a look back at the Libertadores final just quickly, or do you want to do the results first? It's up to you, really.
Well, my quiz is around the Libertadores final in a sense. It's loosely gathered
Okay.
around it. So I'll do you my quiz, James. We can have a little chat if you want, a bit more chat about the Lib if you want, and then I guess we're into the fixtures and the games of the week. So basically, my quiz question to you, James, is pretty simple. Obviously, Galo won the Libertadores in 2013, James. They beat Paraguayan side, I think it's Paraguayan side Olympia, wasn't it? 2-2 after on aggregate. They won the final on penalties. Lost the first leg 2-0, won the second leg 2-0, and won on penalties. Obviously, Botafogo won it on Saturday. But what I'd want to know, James, and it's probably obviously a pure guess from you, but what position did Botafogo finish in the league when Galo won the Libertadores in 2013? What position were Fogo finishing in?
Yeah, pure guess. I've no idea. Let's have a go. 15th.
No, they did a lot better than that. They finished in 4th position, James, in 2013. Just a bit more to it. Who won the league in that season? Just as an off chance, if you can give me that one.
Santos.
No, it was Cruzeiro. Cruzeiro won that one, James. I think they came they came 9 points ahead of Grêmio in second. So, and 15 points above Botafogo in 4th. So they did very, very well. Paranense were the other team that made up the top 4 that season.
Oh, wow. Yeah, very different top 4 to this season. And Cruzeiro, of course, recently beaten in the Sudamericana final as well. Yeah, nice little quiz, George. So let's, bit of slurp in there. Let's get, just have a quick look back at the Libertadores final. And of course, like you said, it wasn't a good result for you as a Galo fan. I had a bit more hope for Galo going into the game, but after they were very heavily second favourites for the game. I think once that red card went in so early on, I think the game swung towards them being the favourites, and they weren't good enough to handle that tag, and they weren't really sure how to handle having so much of the ball, really. How did you see it?
Well, yeah, I think it was that, James, wasn't it? They were a bit like, oh, heck, we're probably favourites to win now. They didn't assert that numerical advantage. They didn't do enough with that numerical advantage. It was too slow, too pedestrian. Fogo, they have better quality, really, and they showed it. You know, the goal from Henrique, the first one, to get that penalty as well was a bit clever, wasn't it, to do? Tellez smashed it in. And from there, there's kind of no way back. I know Vargas, first touch in the second half, lovely header, but they just didn't do enough. There was that Vargas opportunity right towards the end, which he lifted over, which was unfortunate, but they didn't do enough, James. I don't think really they'll have a lot of regrets about that game on Saturday. They really will, because you're playing against 10 men for the whole game, basically, aren't you? You know, ridiculous challenge from Gregor in the opening 30 seconds. So you've got the whole game to play with, and they just didn't do enough. It wasn't enough.
Yeah, it was literally the whole game. I mean, you could see it rattled Fogo, as you can imagine it would, but they didn't ever look particularly panicked. They never really looked as though they were unsettled by Galo, and what Galo were doing was tending to just get it a bit wide. And then Arana, I thought, had a poor game, couldn't seem to beat the first man with the cross. Hulk was having a few efforts. Hulk played well, I thought, generally, but you could see that he just couldn't quite lift himself and lift the others around him. And Fogo, just a quality shone through. Once he settled into, right, we've got 10 men, I think they knew what to do with that. And like you said, the quality eventually of Henrique and other players really shone through. But I think he was a standout man, really, for them. And I think he did win the player of the tournament eventually as well. So a disappointing day for Galo. And I'm not sure, actually, if we were saying perhaps that Melito might go immediately on the whistle pretty much. I don't know quite if he is still in a job. I don't think he has been let go yet. So I think he is still there. It seems bizarre that they would keep him in there, but perhaps are waiting just for those last 2 games of the season to make the decision.
Yeah, I think he is still there, James. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think he's done. I think he's gone. I mean, to get them to 2 finals was great, but ultimately you've lost both of them. The league position, let's be honest, James, they're still not completely numerically safe from relegation. They need just a point, I think it is, from the last two to completely secure safety, which they should do, but they're not completely safe. So they need to sort that out probably first and then get rid of Milito. I don't think he'll stay in the job. It was probably a little bit too soon potentially for Milito. Did well to get them into those finals, but as I've said all season, really, I think he prioritised those cup competitions from quite early on. It's quite obvious to see that really now. And the league position has paid for it. I think they're standing now in 14th position, James, which is 13th, sorry, which is terrible really for where they want to aspire to be. Only 6 points away from the drop, with only 6 points to play for really though as well.
Yeah, and another man who is leaving is Eduardo Vargas, who obviously got that goal back. Like you said, he had the two opportunities. The first one I thought was a little unlucky, where he just got in behind and he basically had to hit it early and he couldn't keep it down. The second one where he goes through and he has the option to square it or just take his time with it, and he just goes with his wrong foot basically and lobs it miles over the bar. Well, he's leaving, his contract's up, so he was denied a glorious ending. As for Fogo, they could have some week here. That was their first Libertadores win in the history. They could win only their third league championship later this week, George. So, it's on the cusp of being a ridiculously good season for Artur Jorge and his men. And you have to say they deserve that. And if they can get that win and clinch the title, then they deserve that too. But let's move on anyway, because we're not here really to talk about the Copa Libertadores. We're here to talk about the Brasileirão, George. So why don't you run through those fixtures before we get into the games of the week and the awards for this time?
Absolutely, James. It would be a pleasure of mine. So the fixtures, like you said, it was wrapping up match day 36. It started away from the madness of Saturday night. Criciúma 2, Corinthians 4. Cuiabá were relegated finally with a 2-1 home defeat against Bahia. Into Sunday, the 1st of December, then Vasco 2, GO 2, Flamengo 3, Inter 2, Grêmio 2, Sao Paulo 1, PR 1, Flu 1, RB 1, Cruzeiro 1, and it ended with Vitoria 2, Fortaleza 0. Vitoria safe and sound for next season, James, in Serie A.
Yeah, and well done to them. And commiserations for Cuiabá. The writing's been on the wall for some time for them, and it has finally caught up with them. So let's get into the games of the week, George, because the games of the week are both really down at the bottom. I think we'll do my one first, just because we are going to dish out an award following your one, aren't we? So if we look first at Red Bull Bragantino against Cruzeiro, which was the one I chose, and the reason for that was obviously because Bragantino are still right down at the bottom there, and obviously the manager Fernando Seabra was taking charge against his old club and against a club who, in my opinion, and I think you share the view, George, that were kind of unjustly handed him his P45 earlier this year. So he'd have been keen to get a result against them. In the end, he couldn't quite do that, and they almost did, though. To be fair, they took the lead very early on, 6 minutes. Eduardo Sacha got a goal, and then they were basically battered for the whole game. It looks like Cruzeiro knocking on the door all the time, but they didn't manage to equalise until the 86th minute, I think it was, which was a bit of a tap in by Ramiro after the keeper had parried it. But yeah, it was a heartbreaker one really for Bragantino. They just can't seem to get a win, George. Seabra still hasn't won a game since he's been in charge. They're still in the relegation zone. They're obviously not even on the cusp of the relegation zone. They are in 18th. So they're still 2 points away from safety. They have two enormous games coming up against Atletico PR and against Criciúma. But, as you can imagine, George, the fans weren't happy with this one. There was boos at full time. And it actually transpires now that if they don't beat Atletico Paranense this week and Fluminense do beat Cuiabá, which you would probably expect them to, given that Cuiabá have gone down, that will relegate Bragantino. So this was a really big one. This was one that they probably would have looked at, and given the form of Cruzeiro, they probably would have thought they can get more than a point out of it, and they probably thought they had done until Ramiro popped up right at the end. But Cruzeiro, their form has been pathetic. To be truthful, Diniz has been a nightmare really, he's just not been able to get started at all. They've had one win in 11 Serie A games, George. And that is just not good enough. I mean, remarkably, they're still in a relatively good position. They're up in ninth, actually. And I was reading that, contrary to what we've been saying, the top 6 get Libertadores. The top 8 actually get Libertadores this year now. And I think that might be to do with Botafogo winning the competition. I think they may have extended the places, but actually the top 8 get Libertadores this year. So they've still got something to play for, Cruzeiro. You know, they're only 1 point off 8th and 7th. So they do really want to be picking up some results, but they've got Palmeiras to come next. And then they end the season away Juventude. So, yeah, this one, they would have as well, equally as Red Bull Bragantino would have thought they can get points. Cruzeiro would have probably felt the same. Just on Diniz, he was also been coming under fire from the fans. There's apparently been some protests towards his management of the club. I don't know if that was an organised protest or more just kind of online, dissatisfaction. But obviously Cruzeiro fans, they started to boo Seabra, as you remember, George, when he was still doing relatively well. And obviously he couldn't escape the axe falling on him there. And I think Diniz, I hate to say it, would probably go the same way. How did you see this one? I know you've obviously got very strong views on Red Bull Bragantino, but Cruzeiro are, not in much better nick, are they, at the minute?
Oh, Bragantino are in terrible form, James. Well, yeah, like I said, both of them. I mean, both of them are horrendous form. Like I said, Diniz really not in any. He's been like a negative aspect for him, and he was supposed to be kind of like a positive. Bragantino, like I've been banging the drum for them all for a long time now, and it's finally coming to their D-Day. I think they're done, they're gone, James, and they deserve it. Seabra hasn't won a game yet. I don't know how many games he's had. I think maybe, I'd guess about 7 or 8, maybe. He's still not won. The no wins in 11, like I said, in the league. They just can't buy a win. And even when they went 1-0 up, I still expected them not to win the game. They're just really poor. They deserve to go down, James. There's not really much more I can say on it, really.
Yeah, they have been drawing a lot. They haven't been winning, but they have been quite hard to beat. But yeah, that's not good. Looks like it's not going to be enough. And they've been a bit unfortunate. The teams around them, Juventude, Atletico Paranense, namely, really have been picking up wins, and Vitoria, like you said, have pulled off as well. So they have been a bit unfortunate that others around them. I mean, 38 points is not a bad tally. I mean, it's poor. They should be much higher, and they would have had aspirations for much higher. But it's not a bad tally for a relegation threatened team, really, with 2 games to go. So we'll see. There is still a chance they can pull it out the bag, but it is very much reliant on Flu now. If Flu get a win, they will be safe, and Bragantino will be gone. So big game for them to come against Atletico Paranense, George, who were, of course, the focus of your game of the week. And this was a bigger game, really. I mean, this was the battle of 2 teams who really shouldn't be down where they are, but unfortunately have found themselves towards the bottom. So ended Atletico PR 1, Fluminense 1. So what can you tell us about this one?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a massive game, James. I built it, whoever won kind of was safe. As it is, it was more predictably, it was a draw, and neither of them are safe. And, PR stayed 2 points ahead of Flu. PR in 14th on 42, two places and 2 points further back is Fluminense on 40. But like you said, they've got the sort of the goodness of playing Cuiabá, who have just been relegated, who can't seem to buy a win as well. And that's their second to last game. If they win, they're basically safe. So, it's not all bad. In the end, this one, I think PR had the better of it initially, but Flu kind of grew into the game. I mean, you've got to say, PR had a lovely start. The man, Bellezzi, the young fella, is a centre-back. And within 2 minutes, he'd scored. Now, he came into the team in October time. He's only been in the team about a month or so. Came on, scored within a few minutes. Well, he started the game and scored within a few minutes. A lovely volley, really, to be fair. Set up by his centre-back partner, Heleno, which was a lovely free kick into the box. It got a flick on, and in there was Bellezzi to poke it in. But Fluminense then eventually started to find the feet. I think we're going to touch on, of course, a winner, aren't we, James? of course, the goalkeeper had a big part to play in this game. And he kept Flew at bay a little bit, a couple of nice saves. Then was a pivotal moment. John Arias missed a penalty. It was a silly penalty to give away, really. The defender kind of Godoy, the fella Leandro Godoy, the right back, he kind of he wanted to save it. He thought it was in the net, it looked like, and he pushed his hand towards the ball from across. Ref went to VAR and gave the penalty, which obviously was a poor penalty. John Arias, what are you doing with that one? Really soft penalty, easy for Michael to save down to his right-hand side. And he did well to follow up as well. The ball rebounded back to Arias and he saved it again. So he did really well. Really, visual celebrations from him after the double save, which was good to see. But then into the second half, there was absolutely nothing he could do about Arias' goal. It was wonderful, James, to be fair. Nice bowling from Ganso, who had his part to play in a negative effect as well towards the end of the game. It was a lovely assist from him into the box. He cut inside and he just absolutely lashed it. Beat Michael at his near post. Even had the power to go across the goal and come out the other end. He hit it with such force to level the game. But nobody could find a winner. It was very much deadlocked from then on. I think Paranense are probably obviously better off and probably happier with the point. Like I said, Ganso got himself sent off. Crucially, will miss the game against Cuiabá for a silly push in the penalty box in the last minutes of the game. Got himself a straight red card. The manager at PR, Lucho Gonzalez, he was questioned after the game about his future, and he kind of said, we'll talk on Thursday. Obviously, they've got a massive game as well themselves, James, against Bragantino. So that one is pivotal for Fluminense as well, obviously. And he said, look, we'll talk after Thursday. They'll make a decision on whether he stays till next season, but his contract, I think, is up in the early part of next year, which obviously the season doesn't start till April, so that wouldn't see him into the new season. So let's wait and see what happens for him. But as far as it goes, much better point for PR at this late stage of the season. Keeps them afloat and going nicely towards safety, you've got to say.
Yeah, they'll certainly be happy with the point for Flu. No wins in 7. I think it's Serie A. It's the wrong time of the season to be on a run like that. They haven't won since they actually played Paranense, which I'm not really sure why, but they played them at the back end of October. That was the last game they won. So they would have been hoping to bookend that little run with another win against them, but they couldn't do it. And like you said, it was really swung on that missed penalty for John Arias, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a second. But yeah, Flu really badly need to win against Cuiabá. If they do, they are safe. Nobody can catch them from Criciúma and Bragantino. So you have to say things have still fallen kind of kindly for them. And as for Lucho Gonzalez, I'd probably say that, he's deserving of his stay there. He's got them out of trouble, and that's always a positive thing. So I'd suggest that if he wants to, of course, then he should be very much in the running to stay afloat there. Anything you want to mention more about the game, George, about the state of play down at the bottom before we look at the awards and kick off with the young player of the round?
Not really, James. I think it's getting a little bit clearer now, isn't it? Like you said, if RB lose against PR on Thursday night here, then it's and Flu win. All they've got to do is win, and that's it. It's basically sorted both of them out, hasn't it? Other than obviously Criciúma have to have their say on it as well. I can't remember who they're up against actually. Flamengo. So that's a difficult match. So you'd probably. You can't predict anything really, can you? But you'd probably say Criciúma lose and Flu might win, of course. So, yeah, I'd expect Paranense to get something from that game as well. They're on a nice little run now. Lucho's got them on a 4-game unbeaten run. It's a good time to do that. So, yeah, I think it's nearly sewn up. And as I've said for a couple of weeks now, and I think you agree with me, James, I think it's going to end the way it is at the moment.
Yeah, very much so. I think there hasn't been much change there for the last 2 or 3 weeks now, and those teams I think will be beginning to accept their fate they certainly will be after this week, you'd imagine. But let's stay with that game, George, as we go on for the young player of the round. There were a couple of notable mentions just before we dish it out. So, like you said, the chap who scored there for Paranense, Belize, what was he called? Is it Belize?
Belize, yeah,
He was in the running, 21 years old. He's only, like you said, just come into the team. So, good for him to get a goal. And it was a big goal still. It secured a good point for them and hold them a little closer to safety. So, he was certainly in the running. Luciano Rodriguez, once again, George, my man for Bahia, got the winner this time. It was a good goal as well, very determined, kind of bulldozing his way through the defence and finished it off well. And that was a big goal for Bahia. It won them a game for the first time in a long time. And he's on a really good run, Luciano Rodriguez. So he was still only 21, of course. He was very much in the running for this one. And there was another name, youngster who scored, Eliel, for Cuiabá, of course, got the opening goal.
Easy for you to say.
Well, yeah, well, not really, but yeah, Eliel. It's a funny old name, that one. But he gave them the lead in the same game actually against Bahia, early doors in that one. And he was a very young player who's actually only started 2 games in the Brasileirão this season. He's got 2 goals. But he's played a few more anyway without scoring. But neither of them two won it, George. But do you want just a quick word on either of those 2 teams or either of those 2 players, Cuiabá here?
Yeah, look, I mean, Cuiabá relegated. We all knew it, even though they did go ahead, like you said, Eliel got his goal and put them, and there was a little bit of hope. But, Bahia said, no, come here, you're going down to Serie B. So there you go. I think, finally they're gone. They haven't been able to win for a little bit of time. And, I think it just seems like a little bit of a mess, to be fair, in Cuiabá. And which what we predicted at the start of the season, really, as well. As far as Bahia, long wait for Rogério Ceni to have a win. He's finally got it. I think Rodriguez has been, like you said, really pivotal to some, performances in some sense. I know they haven't been winning, but Rodriguez has scored his goals, and he's he's done well for Ceni there. But yeah, finally a win for them. Their season's done. It's just whether Rogério Ceni wants to stay on as well, because I think there's a lot of pressure coming to his door as well, isn't there? So let's wait and see what happens in the summer. But, obviously, I'm a big fan of Rogério, and I would like to see him stay. But, you've got to say it has been an incredibly poor run of form for them now, though. Like you said, though, top 8 get Libertadores, so they'll be absolutely buzzing with that news, and they'll be wanting now, like you said, only a point ahead of Cruzeiro in 10th, sorry, in 9th. They want to sew that up in the next couple of games. So it's given them something to really hold on to.
Yeah, definitely. It would be a big result for them if they could do that. For Cuiabá, our man Pitta, as the goals have dried up for him. He's only got 1 since mid-July, George, and he hasn't scored since August. So that's part of the reason, perhaps, that they've gone down. Maybe he'll have a better time in Serie B. But the actual winner of the young player of the round then was the man you've mentioned there already, Michael, for Atletico PR. And we did mention him last week because he's been in really good form, starting every game between the sticks for Atletico PR. Still only 20, George. And like I said, the pivotal moment in that game was that Arias penalty save. And yeah, he stepped up big and saved it, didn't he?
He did. I mean, like I said, we talked about Michael last week. I thought it was only fair. It was close, but it was only fair that I gave it to him. That we gave it to him. I thought Belize was my other choice, I think. And he'll be a bit, if he was listening, he'd be a little bit good, James, if he was to miss out, because it was a nice finish. It was a volley finish, and he did well. It came at him quickly, and he poked in the top corner. But I think Michael is highly rated. We were talking about him last week. He's done really well, and I think we've overlooked him a couple of times. Just purely, I think you kind of not forget, but you do a little bit about the goalkeepers and things. So, it's good to give it. I think it's only the second time we've given a goalkeeper an award, and I think the other one was Brento Krepski, wasn't it? Also for PR, obviously, Michael's debutising for him when he went to, was it Dubai he went to? Saudi Arabia.
It was Saudi,
wasn't it? And so, yeah, he stepped in for him, and he's done really well. I mean, it wasn't a good penalty from John Arias, but he still had to get down to his right and push it away. And like I said, it came back to Arias as well, and he had to save rebound, although again it was another weak shot, but he still had to be there and save it. And and he made a couple of more effective saves in the game as well. He's a really highly rated goalkeeper. I think he's already, like I think we said last week, he's been on the Brazilian national team. He's definitely on their radar, isn't he now? And he's probably on the European side's radar as well. So yeah, he's a worthy winner this week, James, and it's good to give a goalkeeper a bit of credit as well, isn't it? Really, I mean, the one that the goalkeeper, ironically, that doesn't deserve any credit is Mr. Leandro Link, who got himself like ludicrously sent off, James. So not even being on the pitch, he was on the bench. He's obviously lost his place to Michael's good form. And he was really going at the fourth official for reasons I have no idea about. But he was right in his face, and he just got himself sent off. And I think it was after the penalty as well. It was not long after the penalty had been saved. I think he might have been disappointed. I think Christian Cardozo got a yellow card. He might have been just before that. I think he was probably remonstrating with the officials for some reason about that, but I've no idea really. And he was absolutely furious by the look of it, and he got himself sent off, and he wasn't even on the pitch. So, one good, one bad for PR in terms of goalkeepers on, in that game on Sunday.
I think it's probably been the case since they lost Bento, really. Link was obviously the man who stepped in, and he played 14 times, but he did make a few high-profile errors. And, Michael has come through and proven that, they didn't need to worry. I mean, like I said, Bento went off to the Middle East, and it's regardless of the money he's being paid or anything like that, it's very much out of the collective consciousness in football. So Michael has stepped in and taken that mantle very, very well indeed. And yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise to see him stepping up in the next few years. He's obviously a very local lad. He's been delighted to play for the club. He had this to say after the game: George, since you were a child, you get attached to the club in a way you can't describe with words. I'm very happy to be able to help the team I love so much. So he's a big fan of the club. He loves the club, and it's really coming through in his performances. So well done to Michael, and he's really one to watch for the coming year ahead, where he'll probably start the season as the number one, unless somebody pounces for him in January, of course. But moving on to the player of the round, then, George, there were a few contenders for this time around, weren't there? I mean, we're a bit spoiled. There's sometimes a little bit of a lack of choice. We had loads of them this time, didn't we? That man, Rodrigo Garro, again, turning up with a goal and an assist for Corinthians. He's now got 10 of each this season, George. He's right up there on both tallies. I think he's got the most assists in the league. He's really flying right now. And Yuri Alberto as well, with 2 goals in that game, 2 late goals to turn it around and win another game for Corinthians against Criciúma. But we're going to touch on that one a little bit later on, aren't we, George? So I won't say anything more on those Corinthians boys, but they were both in the running this time. Yannick Balassi in the same game, George. I mean, what a lead he gave Criciúma in this one.
Oh, it did. It was a couple of really nice finishes from Yannick as well, weren't they? Give them a lead. I thought, wow, we know he only scores in fits and starts, James. He likes to score doubles or hat-tricks if he's scoring, and he did again. He hasn't scored any since August, and he is Criciúma's top scorer, which tells you all you need to know, really. He scored 2 in a game with Vasco in August, and that was the last goals he got. So, yeah, but it was a lovely couple of goals and nice finishes. We know that he's got that in his locker. But unfortunately, Criciúma just crumbled, didn't they? And absolutely let Corinthians back in. You don't want to do that in the form they're in. And they absolutely, in the end, took them to pieces in the second half, especially. So, yeah, it was a massive win again for Corinthians, who, with that news of the Libertadores extending their, places for the Serie A, they'll be full guns blazing now towards the 2 games they've got remaining to make sure that they get one of them places. They are currently in one of them places in 8th as well. So, but yeah, we'll talk about them in a short while.
Yeah, we will. But Balassi was unlucky to be on the receiving end. He was the one who turned up for Criciúma on the day. Another man who really turned up for a relegation-threatened team, or actually a relegated team already, was Luis Fernando, who we've spoken about a number of times, George, this season. He got 2 goals, 2 as well, quite pleasantly, taking goals for Gio. But again, he's, he might be one who's being looked at by clubs maybe further up the division, you would imagine. But it wasn't enough for them as well. They were 2-0 up, I think, were they? And they threw it away against Vasco in the end. So, yeah, two nice finishes. Luis Fernando, he's one who's been worthy of note for Gio, the only one really. But he couldn't stop them. In a bit of a metaphor for the season, his brilliance wasn't enough to win them the game. Another man who stood out, I thought, George, in this one was Alex Teixeira for Vasco. We haven't seen an awful lot of. Obviously, a very experienced player, big European pedigree. Got a goal and an assist, and the assist for this one, I don't know if you remember this one, but it was a really good individual run and a layoff for, I think it was Dominguez to finish it. Really good play from Alex Teixeira.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was a really, like I said, individual rundown. And then I thought when he put it in, I thought, see, he got a touch on it, but no, he didn't. And it just rolled in, didn't it? And he did all the hard work. And, it was Dominguez got he just had the simple-ish sort of task of putting it in the net, and he gets all the glory. But, yeah, that was a really nice little run, wasn't it? There was lots and lots of them that seemed to turn up with goals and assists, James, this week. Well, like you said, we're absolutely spoilt for choice this time. Sometimes we're like, oh, I'm not sure who's going to get it this time. But, on this occasion, there was plenty of them. Everybody wanted to win that award, didn't they? You talked about Lewis. Well, why wouldn't they? It's a prestigious award. But, yeah, I think Luis Fernando, you talk about him and Gio. I mean, he's got 8 goals for the season. The next to him, he's got 2. So, that just tells you everything. He's really carried them. And like you said, a bit of a sort of, that's the way the season goes. His brilliance wasn't enough and hasn't been enough ultimately to keep them anywhere near staying up. But they really, and obviously got himself sent off in this one, a bit silly at the end. But these things happen. He had a good game as well.
Yeah, that counted against him in the play of the round stakes as well. Another one who got 2 goals was Michael for Flamengo. 2 goals early doors against my boys. Inter, like I said at the top of the show, Inter's winning or unbeaten run finally came to an abrupt end away at Flamengo. No disgrace in that, really. It was 3rd against 4th. Ahead of the game. Sorry, no, it was 3rd against 5th, wasn't it? But Flamengo jump ahead of both Fortaleza and Inter. And yeah, Michael with 2 goals in that one. They were 3-0 up. Inter roared back and looked like they might snatch a point. Went to 3-2, but Flamengo held on to hold a grip on 3rd place. And actually, George, ended Inter's title hopes. We did speak last week with that game against Botafogo to come, whether Inter were still title contenders. They are not. They cannot win the title anymore. It was never going to happen anyway. But it was still mathematically possible. Another team, George, whose title dreams have been ended was Fortaleza, and they were ended by our eventual player of the round winner, Mr. Alejandro. And I'll let you speak about Alejandro, George, who got 2 goals for Vitoria, both goals for Vitoria. I know you're a big fan of his. And with these 2 goals, he moved to joint top of the scoring charts in the Brasileirão, moved Vitoria to 10th, kept them in the Brasileirão for next year, and like I said, ended Fortaleza's title dreams.
Absolutely. I mean, whoever signed off this loan from RB Bragantino, I don't know if they'll still have a job, James, to be honest with you, because they'll be absolutely cursing themselves for that decision. I mean, look up there, the 2 teams are in the league. Like you said, I'm a big fan of Alejandro, James. Top, you say joint top with, is it Estevao as well? 13 goals.
Joint top with Yuri Alberto now, Estevao.
Oh, well, there you go. So joint top with Yuri, who's been in hot form as well. And this man, James, he's just turned up and turned up and turned up. We've seen his magic, throughout the season. Now we've seen a couple of goals which were more like workman-like, poacher kind of he's there to do that kind of thing. But ultimately, he's been the difference, James, really, between them, Vitoria going down and them staying up. I think 8 points he's got them from either scoring winning goals or scoring a goal to get a point. So that, without them goals, they'd have been in a relegation zone. So he's been fantastic. Really, I would be very surprised. I think Vitoria obviously will want to go. They want to go in for him for a permanent move. But I think there'll be other suitors. There'll be so many other suitors now for Alejandro. And I don't think he'll be at Bragantino in Serie B next season, that's for sure. And I don't think he'll be in with Vitoria either. I think there'll be teams looking further up the division for this fella. He's really, really put himself well and truly in the shop window with, some great goals. And, he's only 24. He's a decent age. But I don't think he would have been able to foresee such an amazing season. And Vitoria themselves, these goals, like I said, were pretty. The first one was a squared ball and he finished it off nicely. The second one, he capitalised on some, bit of fortune with the Fortaleza goalkeeper. It bobbled up, the back pass bobbled up before he managed to touch it. But Alejandro was alive to it and finished it off nicely. I really do think he's destined for higher things. But, Vitoria, congratulations to them. I think we both said they were going to get relegated at the start. And, Thiago Carpini, for me, is up there with Manager of the Year as well. He has to be, the way he's kind of taken them on to 10th position. Look, I mean, who knows? It's improbable, but it's not impossible. They squeeze into the Libertadores conversation. I mean, it's a long shot, that, but it's not impossible. And I think that is down to it is down to Alejandro in no small part at all. He's got 13 goals. The next one to him, James, is Mathusino. He's got 5 goals. So, it's a big difference, that. And he's assisting as well, 4 assists. They all count. He deserves the player of the round this time.
Yeah, I think Mathusino's injured as well at the minute, so he's had to step up. Well, he's an important player for Vitoria as well, but you have to give credit to Carpini. I think he showed why Sao Paulo went for him at the start last year. Obviously, it didn't work out from there. He didn't get a lot of time at all at Sao Paulo. But yeah, he's obviously a very talented coach, and he's done wonders with Vitoria their first season back in Serie A since 2018, the Rubro Negro. So, it's a big result for them. I mean, wherever they finish now, I don't think they will get that Libertadores place, but even a position in the Sudamericana is a really big result for them. Perhaps the first time in their history. I'm not sure about that, but it could well be the first time in continental competition if they do qualify. It's not a done deal yet. They could obviously still finish, as low as I think 16th, even if they lose both of their last games. And I think they've got Gremio next, and I don't know who they've got on the last day of the season, Flamengo. So, they don't have 2 easy games. They're not going to come in the Libertadores, but they won't mind it. The shackles are off now. They're safe. They can go out and have a bit of fun. Alejandro might get a few more goals, and we'll see. But, yeah, congratulations to them. And yeah, they've really turned up and proved us wrong, certainly, and we'll keep our eye on them for next season and see if they can consolidate what has been a really good year. And Carpini actually called it a difficult, challenging and magical spell so far. So there you go.
I just think he deserves a load of credit, James. I really do. And I think he definitely, in my mind, he's one of for the task that there was for Vitoria at the start of the season, and to come in late, obviously didn't work out for him at Sao Paulo. He could have sulked a little bit and stayed out the game for a bit. He's not done that, and he's got them into a position which nobody would have expected this at all. They were playing in Serie C, in 2022, James. So, it's 2 promotions in a row, and the first involvement in Serie A since 2018. So, yeah, congratulations to them. Congratulations to Carpini and to the team. They've done a fab job there. They've done a wonderful job of that.
Yeah, and as for Fortaleza, like I said, the dreams of a title were always a little far-fetched, but they did, they deserve to be in that conversation. They've put themselves in that position. They were described as being unrecognisable, actually, in this game. They're without a win in the last 3, which is, again, the wrong time to hit a bad patch of form if you're going for the title. João Ricardo, who was actually the goalkeeper who made that error, said it was one of the worst games we've played all season. And I think he has to look at himself a bit in that. Obviously, he was unlucky with that bobble, but he could have still managed it better. But yeah, Fortaleza, disappointing for them, but they have to pick themselves up. They've got Gio next. They're still only a point of Flamengo in 3rd. They can still finish 2nd. It looks unlikely that, but whatever happens, they should be pleased with their season. They're guaranteed a top 6 finish now. virtually guaranteed of a top 5 finish. So I think it's still a good result, but there'll probably be slight disappointment that they weren't able to make it count when they had the chance this season.
Yeah, I think so, James. Definitely there'll be a disappointing edge to it. That defeat, yeah, the goalkeeper won't be happy, but it was unfortunate. But he had, like you said, he did have to manage it better, that bobble, but he didn't. And they lost the game, no goals now in the last 2. They are, like I said, hitting a little bit of a run of form in the end of the season. That is bad. But, ultimately, Vojvoda's had them playing an absolutely outlandish season by the sort of midpoint of it. They were kind of top for large chunks of it, and in the proper conversation for top of the league. It's only over the last couple of months that they've dropped a little bit. But yeah, that was probably to be expected, the quality of the teams that were above them and around them at the time. So it's been a great season for them, good season for Vojvoda. I think, again, like Carpini, he will be in the conversation for manager of the year as well. So, it's another one of them, but they can't be disappointed too much. It's been a tremendous effort. You've got to say they'll be likely favourites to beat Gio on Thursday morning here. So, and then it's a big game with Inter, isn't it, to see at that point if you can secure your top 4 position. But again, top 8 get lib. So they got the Libertadores anyway, haven't they now? So.
Yeah, they've already qualified. So let's move on to the goal of the round then, George, the last award. Again, there was a couple of contenders. Wesley for Inter got a nice long-range finish. The goal actually, I think, should have won it. I'll let you pick this one. I think Luis Gustavo should have possibly won this one. He got a really nice volley after it was a bit of pinball from a corner for Sao Paulo. It didn't win them the game. Ultimately, they lost as well. It was just a consolation for them up against Gremio, which obviously secured Gremio's place in the league as well for next year. But yeah, I thought that could have won, to be honest. But I'll let you discuss why you felt that Bidu, the Corinthians right back, I think he is, no, left back, isn't he? Why Bidu should have won this one, or did win this one.
Yeah, so Bidu's a left back. I think, I know maybe I should, but he did have an assist as well in this game, and I think this kind of, for me, was like, yeah, he scored a lovely goal, but also he got an assist. So I thought this probably maybe came into my thinking of it. But Luis Gustavo's was second on my list. I thought, actually, I did really enjoy the Arias goal as well, for Flu as well. But that Gustavo one was great, wasn't it? Just the way he picked it out, and it was always going in the net. It was one of them that you knew immediately. The goalkeeper never knew he weren't going to get to it. He didn't even bother attempting it, did he? So it was one of them. But I just thought Bidu, it was a nice hit, and it was like a riser, wasn't it? It just sort of rose into the top corner. Yeah, and I thought, I don't know, I kind of like the idea of, he set up Gallo for their first one, and then Gallo set up Bidu for his one. So, it was like they were doing each other a favour there. I just thought it was a nice hit, James. And, ultimately Corinthians as well, which was in my mind as well. They did win the game as well, which, you've got to say does have an effect as well, I think.
Yeah, it was the equaliser in this one, wasn't it? It was only just a few minutes after Gallo had got them back in the game. His teammates seems popular with his teammates. Bidu, there was a video going around after the game of him being applauded and a bit of water chucked on him and stuff in the changing room after the match. And they're all obviously delighted at the minute, George. That's 7 games in a row that they've won, Corinthians. They are now, with Inter losing, they're the form team in the division. Like you said, up in 8th. They look good for a Libertadores place. They've got Bahia next, which is a big one. Obviously 7th against 8th. Whoever wins that will be guaranteed a place in the Copa Libertadores. So both teams there with a lot to play for. Bahia obviously trying to cling on to what was a good season and try not to let it slip away. And Corinthians obviously just on an upward tick and trying to turn what looked like being a potentially devastating season into a really, not really successful one, but they've salvaged a really good result from the end of it, really. So all credit, like we said last week, to Ramon Diaz. He's come through for them, and he's doing is really working. There's goals all over this team. Yuri Alberto, as we said, there is now the top scorer, joint top scorer of the division. 2 more goals for him. He's got 29 in all competitions. So big numbers, and we both said I think that we'll be very surprised now if Yuri Alberto, if they're able to keep hold of him, to be fair.
Oh yeah, Yuri Alberto James is, yeah, I like we discussed, over messages. I think that Yuri Alberto is destined for the Premier League. Whether Southampton come back in for him or not, who knows yet. But I feel like, Yuri Alberto, that will be, and it's a good cut-off point. He can end the season on a high with Corinthians, and then he can move in maybe January to Europe, maybe the Premier League. That would be a nice kind of move for him in his career. I think just cuts it off nicely at Corinthians, and then new start January, and get the ball rolling in Europe. But like I said, Corinthians it's unbelievable, really. 7 in a row after such a desolate kind of first half of the season and onwards. It looked like it was going to be a relegation battle to the end, but Ramon Diaz has really got them going. I think Memphis Depay, without scoring and assisting in goal involvements game in, game out, I think he's had a real impact as well on the club, on the team. I think he has. I guess if you just speak to fans, they would probably maybe say the same as well, possibly. He's really galvanised them, I think, as well, and made them maybe believe that they are better players than they were showing in the early parts of the season. So, fair play to him. He's come in and worked, and Alberto, Garro, it's a good side. It really is.
Yeah, Romero as well has played his part, I think, off the bench quite a lot too. He actually got 2 assists in this one. Angel Romero, he's been a good player for them this season, and we haven't mentioned a lot as well. A few youngsters in there as well, Bidon and a couple of others who we mentioned at the start of the season, actually. So, yeah, fair play to them. It'll be interesting to see whether they can maybe, because I know they were in a relegation scrap a bit last year, maybe they can finally have a push towards the top of the table again this time. Obviously, for a time, it looked like their winning run was going to be ended by Kritschuma and Yannick Bolasie especially, but they did roll back in the second half. There was some few funny moments in this one, George. Actually, I don't know what quite happened between the sets of fans, but the game had to be paused actually twice during the game for fights in the stand, which obviously isn't funny. The military police had to intervene apparently as well. The game was stopped for more than 20 minutes as things were sorted out in the stands. But what was a little bit funny was the Kritschuma mascot, who is a tiger, they call him Tigre. He was seen provoking the Corinthians players during the pause. I'm not sure exactly what he was doing, but he was upsetting a few of the players, and the players had to be restrained by everybody was on the pitch. There's a lot of staff members and stuff, and the tiger, I don't know what he was doing, but there's a video of him just running off, and he runs straight down the tunnel. He does kind of a bit like a Cristiano Ronaldo celebration as he's heading off down the tunnel, and then he balls down the tunnel. So not sure what happened, but the fallout of it was that the referee's report after the game, he included the name of the tiger. I don't know if he included the name of the actual guy in the suit or whether he just included Tigre. And also a photographer, Kritschuma photographer, were included in the report and will be banned from the next game. So I'm not sure quite how that would go, but you're talking about his passion and stuff, and the mascot was just, got too excited. He didn't look upset. He looked more like he was being a bit cheeky than anything to me, but wrong time and wrong place to do that. And yeah, things going bad to worse for Kritschuma in the relegation battle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what you want, is it? But it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it, having a argument with a giant tiger on the football pitch? But what can you do? They, like, overexcitement, it boils over to frustration, and people get frustrated. The players always doesn't seem to take that much, James, to get things riled up in any given game, does it? To be honest, and you don't really know why, what's going on, what's happened. Because but obviously sounds like a little bit of bad blood between the two sets of fans. But yeah, it does get from bad to worse for Kritschuma. You've got to say, I think they're gone. Really, they've got Flamengo next, and like we said, I don't fancy them to get anything out of that game, and I do think Flu will get some kind of result against Bragantino. So it's Cuiabá they're playing, isn't it? So, yeah, I think they'll win that game. So I think it'll be curtains. And to be fair, they've given a good fight ultimately. But Bolasie, like we said, only really seems to be the one that shows up for them generally. He scored his, like I said, first 2 goals since August and he's still the top scorer. So it doesn't say much. I mean, he's got 8 goals, so he's kind of done his bit, a bit like Fernando, done his bit, but hasn't been good enough in the end. And no wins for 7 games, and only 2 wins out of the last 10. So again, you've got to say they probably would deserve to go down. And Tenkati's done all right, really, hasn't he? With first time in the top division for 10 years, but ultimately it's not been good enough. And scenes like that, it just makes a little bit of comedy it makes you a little bit of a laughing stock, really, at the end of the day. Imagine that happening in over here. People would you'd not hear the end of it, would you?
No, you wouldn't. But your Corinthians, I don't think were too bothered. I mean, they obviously got the result. If you win, it probably is a bit funny, but if you lose, then it just makes you look a bit stupid, and that's what happened in the end. So, Kuchuma virtually, like I said on the top of the show, they're standing on the edge of going down. We're very, very close to finding out the 4 teams who have gone down. Obviously, we already know the 4 teams who are coming up, and everything between the first place and last place will be sorted out over the next couple of over the next 6-7 days, really. Yeah, 6 days.
Yeah. I mean, the next time so we're doing one on Friday, but this time next week we'll know exactly. Well, it'll all be over. We'll know who's who, and it'll all be finished, which will be a real shame, really. But that's what that's what happens, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it can't just go on forever. We've got new narratives, new leagues, new teams to explore in just a couple of games. So, why don't you give us a rundown of those games that are coming, George, that we're going to look at? I think all the games are played very close together, aren't they? Over this tomorrow evening, then it's Wednesday and Thursday, isn't it? So, why don't you let us know those 10 games, and then we'll pick a game of the week.
Yeah, so it'd be my pleasure, James. So tomorrow, Corinthians host Bahia. It's an 11 p.m. UK time kickoff. Then into Wednesday evening, the 4th of December, Vasco host Gala at 10 p.m. And then all at 11 p.m. English time, Kuchuma against Flamengo, Sao Paulo against Juventude, and Vitoria against Grêmio. Into Thursday, the 5th of December, then Gio against Fortaleza is a midnight kickoff, as is Cruzeiro against Palmeiras and Inter against Fogo. Then 11 p.m. on Thursday, PR host RB and Fluminense host Cuiabá.
Yeah. So what do you think you're going to go for the game of the week then? Obviously, Botafogo can clinch the title. I believe it's on head-to-head, actually, that they sort it out. So if they win the league. If they win at Inter, that's it. Everything's over. If they lose, of course, Palmeiras can go back level, and it goes to the end of the last day of the season. But it has the potential to be, a crowning moment for Botafogo, obviously after the high of Saturday. So what are you going for?
Yeah, it is, James. I mean, they play the same time. They play at midnight here on Thursday, really early hours of Thursday morning. So, yeah, by the end of that, they'll know, if Palmeiras lose Cruzeiro and Fogo win, that's it outright. That's done, isn't it? So, like you said, I think given that in mind, I am probably going to take the Inter Fogo game, I think. Just purely because you want to see if it is the crowning moment, like you said. It might not be. I mean, but I do kind of like more the focus on the end of the league. But it's kind of I think one of us has to look at this game really, just in case they do win the league, which I'm sure we'll touch on anyway. But obviously, I'm going to take that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. I think, in my opinion, it's tricky a little bit. I think if Palmeiras lose, I think Botafogo win the title as well.
Yeah, they do.
I think we've got to probably look at both of those games. To be honest, it's such a big. We might have to. There's no other games really that are deciding things down at the bottom in terms of PR Bragantino's a big game, but PR are pretty much safe. Flu Cuiabá again. Actually, no, I'll look at Flu and Cuiabá. Let's have a look down the bottom. So I've got a feeling that it might be sorted out. I mean, if Botafogo win, they've done it already. But Inter, as we know, a tough game. Obviously, they've had that loss now. Inter, how will that affect them? We don't know. they won't want to see, as we saw with Gallo in the cup final, won on their patch. They won't want to see the league title delivered on their ground unless it's for them at the Beira. So Beira Rio, sorry. No, sorry, Beira. I always get that one wrong. I think it's the Beira Rai, isn't it? They won't want to see anybody lift the trophy but them there. So, it's a difficult one to say, but I think let's look down and go with Flu and Cuyabara, and let's hope that the title race rumbles on to the last day, George, and then we can look at Palmeiras Fluminense, which is obviously a massive game, and Fogo at home to Sao Paulo. But yeah, I'll do Flu this time.
Yeah, well, there you go, James. Then we're covering all bases, aren't we, then as well? Top and bottom. But yeah, I think obviously there's two games to go. Things are obviously naturally going to be all sewn up. The games are going to take a lot of the games going to take very little importance really as well as you get on. I mean, there is another one as well. Obviously, like I said, Corinthians against Bahia is a little one there that might still got something to play for a little bit as well. But yeah, it's difficult at this time of the season to pick anything other than the top or the bottom of the league, isn't it? So
yeah, Gallo Vasco's an interesting one. Vasco Gallo,
yeah.
Two teams in shocking form actually, both 11th and 12th, I think, or 12th and 13th, next to each other in the table. That's a battle of losers basically at the moment. But
yeah, I mean Gallo are no wins in 11, James, now. So in all competitions, so they're on horrendous form. I think Vasco no wins in 6. So yeah, it's like I said, 5. So yeah, a battle of losers really. And Gallo in more senses than one, like we discussed at the top as well.
Yeah, it'll probably be a draw, that one. Anyway, let's look at the table, George, before we wrap up.
Yep, of course, James, a pleasure. So first is Fogo on 73, second Palmeiras on 70, third Flamengo on 66, in fourth is Inter on 65, also on 65 in fifth is Fortaleza, sixth is Sao Paulo on 59, 50 points, James. In seventh position is Bahia, eighth is Corinthians on 50 as well. 9th is Cruzeiro on 49, on 45 points, Vitoria in 10th position, 11th Grêmio on 44, 12th Vasco also on 44, also on 44 points is 13th is Galo, 42 points, 14th position is PR, 15th Juventude with 42, 16th is Fluminense on 40, in the relegation zone then James 17th position, Kuchuma on 38 points, also on 38, RB Bragantino in 18th. 19th is Cuiabá, relegated from the league finally this week. And then 20th, already relegated, GO on 27 points.
That's right, 2 down, 2 to go. 2 to go as well for the Brasileirão this season, George. Let's reconvene on what did we say? I think it's going to be Friday.
Friday, yeah. So like you said at the top, James, it's a big week for us. Really, that be 3 in a week, three pods in a week. So yeah, it's all to play for still.
Oops, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all to play for still. Not for much longer though.
No, not at all. It's getting to that time of the year as well, James, ticking on. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, we will. So I'm trying to get this music coming in, but it's not quite lining up right anyway.
Well, there you go. Well, it's usually good to say adios, and then it all kicks in. But there you go. Have a good one. Adios.
Adios.
Bringing the passion from every town. Let the world be filled with love tonight. Sway to the beat, make you feel so right. Summer vibes, we're dancing in the heat.